If you're negotiating with yourself, if you know there's another level and you need a reason to give more, I'm going to give you that reason right now. Start with the understanding that someone, somewhere would give anything to be in your shoes in the present moment, to have your health, to have that light in their eyes, to be staring out at a world filled with possibility in front of them. Just to be gifted what you consider your baseline, just a day in your shoes would be miraculous. But that's a bold statement, so let's unpack it. I want to share a story with you. It's another one associated with the world I've been living lately. And it's my fitness and entrepreneurial journey that I'm on, and I know I've drawn from that well plenty recently. So hopefully there's no fatigue there, but look, I only feel good when I write about what I'm going through, what I'm living. And so I'm inclined to take you into this day-to-day chaos I'm navigating. Fun chaos, exciting chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Well, it was mid-December. My day started with a screenshot from my mom, who was watching my latest episode and looking at some of the YouTube comments. Because it doesn't matter how big or small this podcast is, we know Mama and Papa Pinero are going to be right there cheering from the sideline. It's a blessing that I certainly don't take for granted, right? And so this screenshot was of a comment left under a video. They're East Coast time, so I hadn't even gotten to look yet. And normally I paraphrase things like this, but it's just so powerful and critical to the point that I'm going to read it in full. Now, they say some nice things about the podcast. Obviously, this is not a humble brag, right? Hang with me to the end, you'll get it. Here's what the note said. It said, I don't really know how to say this cleanly, so I'm just going to say it the only way I can right now. These last months have felt like everything in my life is shrinking at the edges. Like I'm watching myself move through a chapter that's quieter, heavier, and fading faster than I ever expected. It's strange when you start feeling your days get shorter. When morning light feels borrowed, and every word you leave behind feels like it might matter a little more than it used to. Your work has been one of the few things I've held on to through all of this. There's a warmth in what you create, something I can't really explain, like Christmas in July. Something that shouldn't exist, something unexpected. But it shows up anyway, and somehow becomes the one thing that makes the cold feel a little less sharp. I don't have many things that feel like that anymore. In a way, you probably don't realize you become like a brother to me, not in some dramatic or poetic sense, just in the simple, steady way you've shown up through your words when the people in my actual life couldn't. Something in what you say feels like it's talking to me, not at me, and when you're hurting, that difference means everything. I'm not doing well. My body's failing, and the end feels closer lately. Closer in a way I can't ignore anymore. I'm trying to handle it with whatever grace I can manage. But there are days where it feels like the ground is giving out under my feet, and still, your voice, your message, the things you put out into the world, they've carried me through the moments I didn't think I'd make it past. If I fade from here someday soon, I just want you to know you made a difference. You gave hope to someone you never met. You helped me hold on a little longer, and in these last narrowing days, that has meant more than I can say without falling apart. Some people are in your life for a heartbeat, but leave an echo that stays. You are one of those echoes for me. That's the note. And it came during a time when I felt down on myself, right? When I was throwing a little pity party for circumstances so small in comparison that, it's laughable. I was mad at my progress or lack thereof, impatient with my results, so locked into an irrelevant jail of my own making that I'd lost the forest for the trees, as the saying goes. That message corrected my perspective very quickly. Eric came by at 7:30 that morning, usual time for our workout, and I'm reading this to him as we're stretching and warming up, and just kind of losing it, trying to get the words out for obvious reasons. It's beautifully said, it's emotional, powerful. We stopped stretching for a second, and Eric reminded me of the big picture, right? That this is bigger than me, that it's bigger than us. Right? We're trying to change the world. We're trying to help as many people as we can before our time comes. Right? It was a powerful conversation and just brought more reflecting. Right? To be totally transparent, like sometimes I'm embarrassed to admit that I oscillate between my true why and my ego, right? Sometimes it's healthy and sometimes you get lost in the weeds. Always grateful, never satisfied. That push and pull moves mountains, but you can't get stuck in the never satisfied part. I know why I'm here and I take incredible pride in that, but the why sometimes butts heads with my ambition. It's a combination of incredible people and outside events that pull me back out, right? That ground me. So the workout that day was a physical fitness test where a lot of 2-minute timed exercises, and then at the end, a 30-minute uphill run on the treadmill, and you just sort of calculate the distance that you can go in 30 minutes. And I remember doing that run and having 5 minutes left, and of course, battling, right? That's the point, fighting for air, pushing. And I'll never forget Eric simply reminding me about the note. And he says, these next 5 minutes we're going to dedicate to that note, to the author of that note, to someone who right now is going through it. Carry the discomfort for them. Carry the pain for them, because you can. You're in a position to put in the work, and that capability creates a sense of duty. What a shame, what a waste, what a tragedy it would be to not give your all in this moment. Do it for the ones who aren't able. Pick them up and take them to the finish line. And here's where we bring this home, right? Next time you find yourself searching for a why, wondering if you should, rationalizing that, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's not really worth it, who cares? I want you to close your eyes and think of the gift before you. I want you to visualize your heart pumping blood through your body, your lungs taking that air in, the sound of life all around you, creating a symphony, a soundtrack for you to break barriers and triumph. And I want you to remember that someone would give anything to have what you have in this moment. And so you push. You honor them with every step you take into the darkness, by pushing yourself, by expanding your own limits and nurturing your own potential. In doing that, you're giving something beautiful to the world. Something that transcends money and politics and keeping up with the Joneses. You're making the world better by making you better. You're pouring into life by pouring into your greatness. So go. Fight harder than you've ever fought before. Ask more of yourself than you've ever asked. For yourself and for those who can't. Leave nothing on the field or the track, nothing in the classroom, in the office, in the studio. Leave nothing in any arena you step into. See, the world is yours. It's always been yours. I'm just asking you to open your eyes and stop running from that fact. And instead partner with it. March with it. Own it. Because excellence will exist in this world with or without you. But to find a reason to help move it forward, that's what you're all about. That's what life is all about. For years, we've talked about it. The mindset, the philosophy, ideas about how to live a better, healthier life. And that's important. But the reality is, it's one step of many. At some point, you have to act. And that's why we've created AGNS Academy. It's a place where your mind gets sharper, your body gets stronger, and arguably most importantly, you're on that journey with a group of people holding each other accountable and lifting each other up along the way. So if you've been listening and listening and listening and are wondering where to take it, AGNS Academy is the answer. You can find the link in the description and show notes below. Let yourself win. Because right now you aren't. You are your greatest opponent, period. Whoa, the brain responds. Who is this YouTube podcast guy to tell me that? Doesn't know a damn thing about me or what I've been through. Beat it, dude. Or, as they say in Boston, get out of here, bud. I'm all set. There is no teacher like life, like experience. And one of the things that I've learned, unfortunately, over and over again, is that when we quiet the noise, we know what to do. Most likely not step by step, but we know where that compass should point. We know it in our hearts, we know it in our souls. It's the classic comfort zone hesitation, right? Leaving the world we once knew to become something altogether different. Well, it's not an easy task, but it is what's required of us. To refuse is human, tightly woven into our DNA. It comes through in our most beloved mythology. It's as much a part of life as the air that we breathe. But that moment of hesitation can be an end or a beginning. That's what makes you the writer of this story. Last month, I found myself on a plane going back and forth to the East Coast a handful of times. And I had this sudden urge to watch the original Star Wars movies, the ones that truly shaped my childhood, had all the action figures, the lightsaber toys, all that stuff. It was fun. It was fun kind of going down memory lane. And as I'm on the plane watching them, my brain wandered to Joseph Campbell's famous idea of the hero's journey, because it's so often linked to the story of Star Wars, right? Where, Luke Skywalker initially refuses to go on this quest, we'll call it, to take on the Empire with his guide, Ben. In his mind, he has to stay on his home planet until the harvest. He has plans, and initially refuses the call. Not too different from another epic tale, Lord of the Rings, where the main character Frodo, when he's informed about the quest before him, he originally hesitates. He knows what must be done, but trembles at the idea of accepting the call, and perhaps he's justified in doing so, right? That's a big journey with a lot at stake. But eventually, life circumstances push both of these characters to the point where the new path becomes more and more likely. For different reasons, of course. But for both Luke and Frodo, the danger is external, the disruption is external, the catalyst is external. But the acceptance is voluntary. And in myth, that's the only part that matters. Right? Joseph Campbell's clear. The refusal or acceptance of the call is always the hero's own decision. It is their choice whether to step off the ledge and into a new world entirely, or to remain where they are. The event is never the transformation, the choice is. Life changes when you decide to go. Now, you and me, we aren't fighting an evil empire or throwing a magic ring into a volcano. Our battles are far less grandiose, but they're not less important. The other day, I was going about my usual day, doing usual things, working, writing. My friend Eric came by, we got into our usual lifting routine. And before we started, we like to make a little intention for every workout, to kind of reinforce that what we're doing is much more than about weights. It's life, right? And that particular morning, it was fear. And we played a song, sat there, listened to it. It was about doing the thing that you've been called to do. And the song finishes, and I said, dude, you know what makes me nervous? A thing I know is separating the present from an unfathomable future. It's to take the guard down. It's to be more raw. To go live. Right? And I've been saying this for years, and in my mind I've been tiptoeing, but not at the rate I know I need to go. Everyone's got their personal battles. That's just been mine. I'm a private person, and my heart is in writing these episodes, but it's so safe. Right? Writing the script, speaking the script. And he looks at me, and no joke, he goes, brother, that's mine too. Okay, check this out. So Eric, he's coached some of the most successful athletes on earth, and that's not to hype him up, it's just true. I won't name drop, but household names. Pro endurance athletes, world record holders, professional MMA fighters, special forces, the list goes on and on and on. And in my world, right, come on, I speak for a living on stages all over the world. I've coached executives on speaking and storytelling. I've helped some incredible people tell their stories. But this, man, it just hits different. There's no buffer zone. There's no room for error. And we looked at each other and we were both like, we have to live stream this workout, don't we? Yeah. And we did, and it was amazing. And we're going to do more of it. And personally, I'm going to do more live stuff because I have to. I know in my gut it is where the compass must point. And that conversation before that workout will be forever etched in my brain as the moment we said yes to the call. Now, this is a micro example. But I think what you'll find is most examples are this. They are micro. It's not always going to be stormtroopers showing up and lighting your house on fire to push you out into the galaxy. Or a wizard guy showing up and bullying you. No, it's the little yeses when your heart races. It's stepping onto that metaphorical stage with shaky hands. That decision turns into the next, and the next, and the next. Life may give you the moment, but you decide if that moment becomes your turning point. That's the bridge. Again, Frodo could have asked someone else to carry the ring and hid. Luke Skywalker could have stayed on his home planet of Tatooine and mourned. But they didn't. Instead, they prove that the world disrupts you, circumstances change you, but you decide whether that disruption becomes a destiny or a dead end. There's a reason mythology is so important. There's a piece of it we know to be true. So when I tell you at the beginning of this episode, you are in your own way, what I mean is, you know what's calling, and at this very moment, you're refusing for one reason or another to answer. Not because you can't, but because you won't. At least not until now. So give yourself the greatest gift you can possibly give. Permission to go directly towards that place that scares you most. Set your compass towards the heart of darkness. And choose to be the light. Overthinking will ruin your peace faster than failure ever could. Why? Well, because failure ends. It teaches and then it passes. But overthinking traps you in a loop that never moves. A mental cage where you replay and reanalyze and relive moments that are already gone. It's deception. You think you're solving problems, but really you're just feeding them. You think you're finding answers, but you're just postponing life. Because overthinking does not protect you, it paralyzes you. It tells you that if you just think long enough, if you just plan more, if you just rationalize a little longer, you'll feel ready. But the truth is, you'll never feel ready. You'll only feel free once you start moving. There is a storm that lives in all of us. Not outside, not in the world, but in the space between thoughts. A storm we're all familiar with, the one that whispers, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if it all falls apart? And we let it walk in and speak. We listen. We think and we replay, we reanalyze, we try to predict a future that was never meant to be predicted. Overthinking is our way of reaching for control of an uncontrollable world. That's just the reality. Our attempt to rewrite outcomes before we've even taken the first lap, first step. But the more we think, the less we live. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. How can someone say that? The more we try to prepare, the less we become. Well, it's because the power is in mobility. See, life doesn't reward those who need all the answers. It rewards those who move without them. Because there's a kind of magic that exists when in motion. There's a clarity that only shows up once wheels are turning, once your feet hit the ground. Every time you've grown, every time you've changed, or found something real, it wasn't because you knew it would work, it was because you went anyway. There was a probability of failure and you stepped into that darkness, that abyss. We think we need to plan the whole staircase before we climb, but staircases are built in real time. Life only reveals them step by step. And that's not punishment, that's grace. That's the universe's way of saying, you don't need to see it all. Just trust that it'll materialize. As long as you're committed, fate will take you by the hand. You don't overcome overthinking by finding every answer. You overcome it by realizing you were never supposed to. You learn to dance with uncertainty, to find stillness in motion, to build faith in the spaces where logic can't reach. Because the truth is, you can't think your way to peace. You can only act your way there. Every great story, I talked a little bit about this on the last episode, it begins with a step into the unknown. And every hero, every creator or leader, they all face this moment where they had to stop thinking and start becoming. As it's been said, jump and grow wings on the way down. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've been circling the same idea or same conversation, waiting for that moment when everything feels certain again. But certainty is a moment that never comes, and maybe it was never supposed to. Maybe life isn't about perfect timing, it's about perfect trust. The mind is such a beautiful tool, but it can be a dangerous master. It can paint the most vivid dreams, and it can build the darkest prisons. Sometimes those bars aren't steel, they are thoughts. The rational brain suggests that by dissecting everything, we're being smart. We think by playing out every single scenario, we're staying safe. But what we are really doing is hiding behind noise. The mind is so incredible at convincing us that thinking is doing. Chaos upstairs means we must be doing something, right? The rumination is progress, the preparation is movement, but in truth, none of that moves you forward. It just exhausts you in place. Running a marathon on a treadmill. Like, yeah, you feel tired, but you're standing in the same spot. I think the weight of the mind is subtle. It doesn't drop all at once, it drips. A constant trickle of what ifs that ultimately breaks the dam open, becomes a flood of hesitation. And before long, you're no longer living, you're maintaining. You're managing anxiety instead of chasing meaning, right? But here's the paradox. The more you demand certainty, the less you get. Because again, like I alluded to, life just, it wasn't meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced. You can never pull the levers on all variables. Adaptability and adjustment is built into the game. So when those thoughts start racing, when you feel that tightening in your chest, that looping in your mind, pause and breathe and remember, you are not your thoughts. You can't provide what they demand of you. You are merely the awareness behind all that noise. I heard this once on a meditation app, and I never forgot it. It said, your thoughts are clouds passing through your sky, but they are not the sky itself, and they are certainly not you. Right? And every time you attach to those clouds, you forget that the sky was infinite all along. We forget that motion breaks the spell, that simplicity is a weapon, that doing one small thing, writing one line, making one call, taking one step, oh my God, that movement can silence 1,000 doubts. Why? Well, because overthinking, it loves stagnation. It feeds on it. But action starves it. Action reminds you who's in control. As much as I wish it did, the universe doesn't hand out maps, it hands out compasses. And those compasses, they don't point to guarantees, they give you a general direction. But that's the beauty. You don't need to know how it all ends. You just need to know which way feels like freedom. I always say, let the heart be the compass. Let the mind figure out the details, the technicalities, the logistics. So when your thoughts urge you to wait until perfection, when they tell you you're not ready, look back, smile, and say neither is the world, and yet it keeps spinning somehow. Because life doesn't reward the ones who got it right the first time. It rewards the ones who dare to start. So let go. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. You stopped chasing what you can't control and started moving towards what you can. You stopped begging the storm to end and instead learned how to dance in the rain. Or for those who have been listening for a while, run in the rain. You stopped asking life to be predictable and started asking yourself to be present. You stopped searching for the perfect moment and realized that this one right now was enough. You stopped waiting for permission and remembered you always had the keys. And somewhere in that quiet surrender, The noise will fade, the fear will soften, peace will return. Not as an answer, but as a feeling. Because that's the beauty of letting go. The moment you stop trying to control everything, you finally make room for everything. The right people, the right moments, the right miracles. They all begin where overthinking ends. So go. Not to figure life out, but to live it. Not to know the ending, but to write it. Line by line, heart by heart, step by step. And when the doubt comes back, because it will, remember this truth. You were never meant to know, you were meant to be. The parts of you you choose to nurture are the parts that will grow the strongest. Your thoughts, habits, focus determines which wolf inside you wins the battle. Let's go back in time to one of the most powerful stories I've ever come across. The Tale of Two Wolves. It's one of the first stories I've ever told on this podcast. At the time, only a YouTube channel. And in a few sentences, I want to quickly revisit it. You'll understand why in a second. There's an old parable about a grandfather and his grandson. They're sitting around a campfire, and the grandfather's telling his grandson a tale of two wolves. One wolf is good, right? He's joy, kindness, strength, love. The other's evil, envy, betrayal, hate. And they battle nonstop, every day, in fact. And the grandson looks at his grandfather mid-story. He says, "Well, Grandpa, which one wins?" To which the grandfather replies, "Whichever one you feed." And when I first heard this story, The Tale of Two Wolves, I thought it was about good versus evil. It's a very simple dichotomy, right? An easy thing to comprehend. No overthinking required. But old man Pinero over here, 38 years under my belt, I look at this a little bit differently than I did a decade ago. Mainly because I've come to realize that life is just a bit more complex than that, a bit more nuanced. Right? 10, 11 years later, it's less about morality and virtue attached to a particular wolf, and more about understanding your personal power, understanding it's less about morality and more about attention, because the truth is, what you give your energy to grows teeth. Is aggression, for example, always bad? Definitely not. Is skepticism always bad? Certainly not. Is vulnerability always good? Absolutely not, right? There's too much gray space in the world to speak in absolutes. But what I've found, and why I still believe this is such a powerful parable, is because it emphasizes that what you water grows. What you give your attention to responds. What you give your energy to will evolve. And when a situation occurs, there's almost always the opportunity to see the negative, to play victim, to feel sorry for yourself. That's sort of the natural inclination. It's like to dwell on what's missing. And that's not necessarily evil, as much as it's just not conducive to an ideal outcome. It reminds me that when life gets difficult, it will simultaneously become more difficult to feed the wolf that's best for us in the long term. The wolf containing rationality. The wolf that understands one step forward can change everything. Life's not ending. Things aren't over. But that's the very wolf that requires nourishment. That is the wolf we want to equip with teeth. And I want to give some real life examples. I'll start with some obvious ones, and everyone here will remember, right? COVID. That chapter of life and how our governments, for the most part, essentially shut the world down, right? People were losing jobs, economies were crashing. It's insane to look back on. I mean, that immediately put an end to a huge part of my business, right? Like so many people, the keynotes I was doing regularly, the time I was helping a handful of clients write speeches and make videos, almost all of them had to drop me for budget reasons. And I remember at that time, that feeling, right? I was feeding the wolf who constantly whispered of despair, my defeat. I felt like I was suffocating, right? There was genuine fear for a while because that was the voice I entertained, the fire I pumped oxygen into. Until I had this realization that, look, someone's gonna win from this, and it can't just be Zoom and pharmaceutical companies, right, who are taking home the W. Why not me? If clients are gone, if speaking is a no-go, find another way to win. Right? Make your YouTube channel double down as a podcast, post more regularly, create longer content, expand your online footprint. If the stage is no longer an option, blow up the digital realm, right? And the COVID situation became my springboard because eventually I fed that wolf. And again, please understand this is not some type of weird flex. This is just saying there was a clear fork in the road there. You know, years later, I've always had this dream of starting an apparel company. And in roughly 2023, I started one called Levels. I don't know if you remember that. And it was an incredible lesson, you know, but the wheels fell off the wagon. Really, I look back now, wasn't the right message. Didn't completely align with my business partners on the North Star. Found myself working parts of the business that, I'll be honest, I had no business being involved in. Not because I couldn't, but because I couldn't well. I'd moved out of my lane in the thing that I'm truly great at. So I decided to give the company to my partner and just walk away. Needed to reassess things. And you bet there was a wolf in my ear saying that was a terrible decision, that I screwed up, that I should have kept fighting until it felt aligned. That I could have figured out sourcing and materials and logistics and all that stuff, that I was a failure for walking away. But I realized how important that stop was. Because just like in other parts of life, you know, understanding what you don't want is critical for both understanding and getting to what you do want. Eventually, I cut that negative feedback loop. I started feeding the wolf who was grateful for that experience, and eventually started a new fitness and apparel company. AGNS, always grateful, never satisfied. And that name is not a coincidence, right? But check this out. First priority was the people. One of my partners has been with Adidas, Fanatics, GoRuck, and the list goes on, right? The others coached and worked with some of the most talented endurance athletes in the world, and this allows me to focus on what I'm best at. From my mistakes, I've been able to better create an environment for winning. You can turn the times you fall into a reason to walk away, to feel defeat, or they can become a reason to show up again better equipped. That is the decision. That is the fork in the road before you. Good or bad has nothing to do with it. It's situational. It's context. It's what's going to get you over the hump, because that right now requires your energy. What you choose to water now will grow. So as you navigate through life, remember the old adage, you know, life is 90% what happens to you and 10% what you do about it. It's how you react to what is placed before you. If you feed the wolf of doubt and insecurity, it's gonna grow teeth. It will consume you. But if you learn, on the other hand, to depersonalize failure, if you feed the wolf that says, hey, life is messy and complex, but you're capable of, amidst all of it, finding the pieces you need, that is precisely what you'll find. The wolf you feed develops teeth. The things you water, they will grow. It's not that you can control the world, but you can and do control what those things mean. So before you assign meaning to what's laid out before you, remember what you want most. Visualize the steps to get there. And be very thoughtful about what value you place where. It's a decision that will either consume you or propel you forward.